This conference will now be recorded.
Breaks, dude. That just makes it worse.
Okay, it's time for us to get started. If you would please, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. We do have a quorum of Planning Commission members present tonight. All members are present. Just a quick reminder, when you're making remarks or asking questions, please make sure your microphone is on. We do need to adopt the agenda, so unless there's any changes or corrections or additions, I'd like to have a motion for that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Any general public comment before we begin with our business? Okay, thank you. New business is the adoption of the minutes from December 18th, 2024. Let's take a quick look at those. I did the quorum, yeah. Yep.
Move to adopt the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, first item of business is case number RZ-10-30-24-03, Crittersville Elementary School LLC, conditional rezoning. Mr. Felix Shapiro is requesting to rezone parcel 21-61 from A1 to B1 with conditions. If approved, Mr. Shapiro intends to renovate the Crittersville Elementary School building. Mr. Nichols, anything to add there?
So everything is essentially the same as it was originally presented to PDRC in the last two workshops. There have been no significant changes by the applicant since that time. We have received a great deal of public feedback. Most of it is in the packet. Everything that was submitted to the zoning administration office before the packet was published has been put in here. There have been a few pieces of written correspondence that have been submitted since that time, and all of the commissioners and all of the supervisors have received printed copies of those. Primary public objections revolve around outdoor amplified music, as we heard during public comment at the last workshop. Many of the public statements are outlined in the staff report that I'm sure you've all read and viewed. And now is the time I'll send it back to you for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nichols? All right, if not, Mr. Shapiro, would you like to address the Planning Commission and answer any questions, please? And as usual, if you would address us and identify yourself for the record.
Sure thing. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. At least a pleasure for me. I will admit Richmond is on, since Sunday, has been on a boil water advisory. And so it may be great to see me, but it certainly wouldn't be great to smell me. I hope you cannot, as it would immediately bias you against this case. But that being said, we are here to discuss the rezoning of Kriglersville Elementary School. At this point, I candidly don't know what else there is to be said. I have truly lost count of the number of conversations we've had in this room, but it surely surpasses a dozen. I know there are a diversity of opinions, and we will hear them tonight. But as was mentioned in the previous hearing, I do think Madison County, taken as a whole, is exceedingly supportive of the project. As was the case last time, I have been touched and overwhelmed by the outpouring of private comments via Facebook, text message, and phone call that I have received. That being said, I understand that there are complicated social dynamics at play in a small town, and that some of the folks that I've heard from may not feel comfortable expressing their statements of solidarity and support tonight. And so, as their neighbor and friend, I think it is incumbent upon me to carry that message forward. I will not overwhelmingly bore you with the details of our plans for the property. As we've sort of discussed ad nauseum, the matter before you is a rezoning to B1. And so, as was discussed, the specifics of my proposal are not overwhelmingly pertinent to your deliberations, but I am, as I've been since the start of this process, an open book and pleased to answer any questions you all might have. I think the lead-in and the discussion about outdoor amplified sound being sort of our one and only area of contention that still remains speaks to how far we've come. And we've come that far through, a deliberative discussion-based process that involved ample engagement with my neighbors. And so I'm pleased to continue those conversations tonight, and insofar as I can, try and come up with solutions that make maybe not everybody happy, but as many people as possible happy. Regardless of how you all vote this evening, and regardless of what is said, my commitment to being a good neighbor and a good member of the Madison community remains steadfast. Kriglersville is a place of unparalleled beauty. It's what attracted me to the spot. It's what's driven my substantial investment up to this point, and what's buoyed my case for taking Kriglersville Elementary School into its next new chapter. I am, by day, an economic development professional in the city of Richmond, and so I spend every waking hour running through economic impact studies, generating economic impact studies, and contemplating, shall we say, the trade-offs and complexities of development projects. It has struck me as very interesting coming, between these two worlds to see the different manner in which economic development projects, particularly hotel and overnight accommodation, is viewed In Richmond, it is our office's top priority to try and court projects like this, albeit of a much larger scale. And in fact, I thought it interesting just a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in a meeting where a developer was talking about what, and to be clear, I am not proposing anything close to this, but a 200-plus room hotel. And they were saying that, given their capital stack, if the city wasn't willing to come forward with dollars, they were going to have to shrink it down to a 160-room hotel. And the city was so horrified by the prospect of losing out on those dollars and those overnight guests that we are contemplating stroking checks in the many millions of dollars in order to court that impact and size. So it is an interesting lens on local preference and desire to see that here in Kriglersville, folks are hoping to minimize sort of the visible impact of the project and to minimize its scale. And over the course of this now 2-3 year conversation, I've come to appreciate why. You have a rare unspoiled corner of the Commonwealth, and that is crucial to protect. And I want to laud not just the diligence of the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors in protecting the quietude and lovely community spirit of Kriglersville, but also the spirit of my neighbors who have taken time out of their busy days and busy lives to come here and share their views, whether they agree with me or not, and hopefully reach a consensus opinion that works for me, works for them, and works for all y'all, and all of Madison, even those who are not directly participating. And so with that, I will. I will also say, in conversations with my neighbors, I have come to hear that my decision to cut down the aggressively invasive Bradford pears that sat in front of Kriglersville Elementary School has been a contentious one. For that, I apologize. I was worried about the impact their sprawling root structures might have on the concrete slab that underpins Kriglersville Elementary School, so I wanted to get them taken care of as quickly as possible. It had not occurred to me that it would offend anyone to have a couple of my trees down on my land, but I appreciate that folks like a tidy appearance in their neighborhood, and I'm happy to have those taken care of with all due haste. Not a proper condition, but shall we say a personal commitment I'm willing to take on. Clearly, we were going to have those trees chopped up before construction could commence at scale. We don't want to be carting building materials in and out over the trunks of trees, but frankly, I was waiting for it to be a little warmer before I got out there, but I am happy to do so if it brings kumbaya to the community. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to you all as the procedure dictates, and to continue the conversation.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Shapiro?
Mr. Carpenter, if I may.
Yes.
Just want to remind the Planning Commission that this is an application for rezoning with conditions, and the conditions are voluntarily proffered by the applicant, and we can not request any amendments or changes directly from the applicant. Everything's got to come by him on his own. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, any questions? Mike?
Mr. Chairman, let me understand that
Yes, sir.
anything that hasn't been proffered, we can't ask.
Yeah, we're not, for a rezoning application, we do not solicit proffers in any way.
So-
Yes.
And if I might ask a question of process, if I were to want to tweak the wording on proffers, how would that be something that can be approached during this meeting?
You
So-
may do that at any time. That's your prerogative, since they're your proffers, yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then for Mr. Elliott's question, so clear difference between, somebody applying for an SUP where the county can impose conditions on it. This is a landowner asking for a rezoning, and the landowner can voluntarily proffer things. But it's not the same in terms of we can come and impose it. If there's a discussion of it about whether or not it does enough to impact whatever concerns people have, I mean, that's the whole point of the proffers, is to try to make a rezoning more palatable. That's a discussion that can be had. It just needs to still be voluntary from the applicant.
But we can ask in a discussion manner.
Yes, sir.
And just so I clarify, if a proffer is verbally made tonight, it can be incorporated without delaying the public process?
So if an amendment to a proffer is going to, I'll say, materially change the application, then we would have to have a new hearing and, re-advertise and all that. If it's not going to be a significant material change, then it's fine. And mostly that comes in the world of like a residential development and like how many houses are going to be there. I'm not sure which of these proffers would be, well, we just see it, play it as it lies, but they can be changed tonight as long as it's not what's considered a material amendment.
Yeah, well, I will say, as long as it is not required a material amendment, or viewed as a material amendment, I would like to make a shift, which is to say, the weekday noise, which is currently set to 9:30, I have done some thinking, had some very productive conversations with my neighbors, and I am comfortable making a shift for the weekday noise to be 1 hour after sundown. So at this moment, we are currently, this meeting was kicked off 2 hours after sundown, so I would have had to turn my weekday noise, and I think that's Monday through Thursday is the specific language. I would have had to turn off my outdoor amplified noise an hour ago. I appreciate the collaborative tone that many of my neighbors have taken, and want to, recognize and reward that. And I'm, though I am ever the optimist, I understand that may not be enough to quiet all discontentedness, but I think it is hopefully illustrative of the collaborative spirit with which I'm approaching this discussion. I also, again, want to reiterate what we were talking about are, outside enforceable bounds. If you look outside at the moment, and if you've been outside even with a coat, you will understand, even if I could, nobody in their right mind would want to have any outdoor event when weather is inhospitable. So I want to reiterate, this project will, as I said last time, not be governed solely by proffers, but also by the dictates of good sense and good neighborliness. If it hasn't been made shiningly clear throughout this process, my loving partner, Samantha, calls the shots in our household, and she certainly would not allow me to do anything that was unsightly, unbecoming, or unpleasant for anybody around.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I got a question, and this is not a demand, it's not a question for you to do anything, it's merely a discussion.
Sure.
Would you entertain the idea of 11 o'clock going to 10 o'clock?
I certainly think in practice. No, that was for the
weekdays.
In lieu of the 9:30 time. So
Weekdays.
so on weekends,
That's why I was rewriting this.
my preference is not to do so, and I will tell you why. As you can imagine, weddings are the most impactful moment in people's lives, and folks have a whole lot of preconceived ideas about what would make their day perfect. And so it is not my desire as a businessman to have to say this, a bride-to-be or a birthday celebrant or simply even, a couple who wants to quietly listen to music out of a Bluetooth speaker as they enjoy the night air in the summertime on a weekend. You know, how they spend their weddings, how they spend their recreational time, and so I'm reticent to do so. That being said, as you might imagine, we will have, you know, a well-fitted interior space that will be made available to folks. I personally think you would have to have far more money than sense to want to truck in a $20,000 tent and spend another $10,000 getting a dance floor or whatever, and, you know, a speaker outside. You know, double the price of your wedding just simply to have a couple extra minutes outside. Now, if somebody's, you know, lined up to pay, I need to do everything I can to make sure this business is viable. And as I've discussed before, since our earliest iteration, we reduced the on-site accommodation by about 80%. And so there is not a huge amount of fat in this business model for me to trim at this point. And so with that in mind, I appreciate the question, but I'm reticent to make that shift.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So I guess the way that this would read at this point would be, all outdoor amplified sound shall cease at 1 hour after sunset, Sunday through Wednesday, and 11 on Thursday through Saturday.
Yes, sir. And for context, right now, the sun sets at about 5 p.m. So the cutoff time tonight would be 6 p.m.
Any other questions? Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, thank you, sir. It looks like we may have some public comment tonight. I would ask that you please, as always, identify yourself, come to the mic and identify yourself for the record. And if you would try to keep your comments to, say, 3 minutes or so that everyone will have a chance to enter their comments in the record.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
point of privilege. Just when you elect to do so, I just want to make you aware, I believe we might have an online folks as well. So when you're ready, Ms. Turner is back there when you call upon her, sir, to handle the online comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any public comment at this point? Any public comment? Okay. Do we have any public comment online?
Yes, we do. Hi. Happy New Year to everybody. This is Samantha Geary. I think it's valuable for me to sort of start off with a public comment. And I've had a little bit of discussion with several of you today about this. You know, we really appreciate the opportunity to have a community comment on the rezoning that's this application that's before you. In preparation for this meeting, I reviewed both the legal ordinances as well as the related judicial precedents in interpreting local and state ordinances. And I'd like to inform the board of what I've found, just so you can make a decision that is supported and supported by and consistent with law that's applicable here. The Virginia Supreme Court has consistently held that when language of statute or ordinance is unambiguous, that we are bound by the plain meaning of the language. And then furthermore, the Supreme Court has held that every provision in or part of a statute or ordinance shall be given effect. The point is that you have to recognize every word of the ordinance. And you can't ignore the language of Article 8, General B1, which I have here, states very clearly the third sentence of that ordinance says The district, meaning the property that is to be zoned, is not to be characterized by either constant heavy trucking other than stocking and retailing of retail goods, or by any nuisance factors other than occasioned by incidental light and noise of congregation of people and passenger vehicles. In this instance, the word occasioned by does not mean occasionally. It means caused by. This is important, as I believe that it has been misinterpreted in the review process. Furthermore, incidental means that it's a byproduct of people talking and going in and out. It is not intentional noise. Therefore, the B1 law states that the district is not to be characterized or have a feature of any nuisance factors other than caused by these incidental light and noise of congregating people. So, when reviewing the applicant's zoning proffer statement, I was confused by the inclusion of both number 4 and 5, especially number 5, which does not actually refer to any part of the legal ordinance and appears to be both arbitrary and specifically not allowed by the ordinance. So I would propose that this application does not legally comply with the zoning and must be revised to omit both number 4 and 5 to comply with the law prior to consideration. This revision is required, I believe, by both state and county law, and I don't want to see the board take an action that would easily be vacated. I don't think you can solicit proffers, but you must require that an application is legally valid. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Jennifer Smith.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I'm a resident of Craigsville. And I, first off, second what Ms. Gary said about the application and the actual rezone not being fitting for the ordinance itself. And to second that, I'd like to point out that the ordinance also says that these zones would normally be located on arterial highways, which are adjacent to or in close proximity to population centers. The VDOT has an approved functional classification map. That map includes 4 classifications: principal arterial, minor arterial, collector, or local roads. All roads fall under one of those 4 categorizations. I looked up. The closest minor arterial road is North Blue Ridge Turnpike, with Old Blue Ridge Turnpike carrying the designation of major collector, which means this road, this area, is not fit for B1, and this rezoning should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further online comment?
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Peter Millay. I'm a resident of Crickersville. I've spoken to you all before. Good evening and Happy New Year to everybody. I just want to make 2 quick points. I mean, first of all, just to absolutely add my endorsement of the comments that you've heard earlier preceding me. And in addition, the 2 points that I would just like to make are, first of all, it seems to me there's sort of an insinuation that public perception of this project is somehow split, and some people in the local community are in favor of it and other people are against it. I can assure you, as a fairly active member of this local Craigsville community, that the local community that is proximate to the school are uniformly and adamantly against the project. And I think it's important for you all to understand that. There may be quote-unquote members of the community that live a far distance away from Craigsville who the applicant, claims he's sort of talked to in positive terms or something. But the immediate proximate community is uniformly and adamantly in opposition to the project as currently being put forward. The second point that I just wanted to make is to disabuse you of any notions that the local community is somehow opposed to any form of redevelopment of the school itself. That is simply not true. In fact, I think you would easily find, as I have found talking to my neighbors, that people are actually quite comfortable and even enthusiastic about the idea of a development of the schools, redevelopment of the schools, so long as it does not include obnoxious noise and music late at night disturbing the local community. I know you all are familiar with our community. We are a quiet, farming, residential community. Most of us go to bed early, we get up early. We're, with all due respect to the applicant, we are most definitely not Richmond, and that is by design. A project like this, I suppose, may be appropriate for the Richmond marketplace, but it's most certainly not appropriate for our local community. And I ask you, I implore you to listen to the voices of those of us who are most proximate to the community, to the school, and to deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment online?
This is Angela Quinn, and my husband and I are adjacent to the school property. And Mr. Felix and his wife or partner stopped by our house one time and had a chat across the fence with us. But he's never come by our property to talk to us about his plans or discuss the impacts that doing such a development or redevelopment of the school may have on us personally, and asking us our opinions. So I want to make sure he realizes that we acknowledge that we've never been contacted about that. We do not have air conditioning in our house, so currently we sleep with our windows open. So noise after 9 o'clock at night would be disturbing to us as residents that live there. And I commute to Richmond from there. So I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So a 9 o'clock bedtime is not outrageous during the week. And my week, maybe his is different, but mine runs from Sunday to Thursday nights. And I would not like to have music played after 9 o'clock if possible during that time frame. I think it would be not appropriate. And we all are a tiny community. We keep calling ourselves a farming community, but we are in close proximity to each other. We can see each other's houses. We can walk to each other's houses very quickly and very easily. So I consider it a neighborhood. And the thought of having outdoor amplified music in a small neighborhood just doesn't make sense to me. And that's my opinion. I think he has a beautiful venue inside and a stage. And if you look at something like what's the place in Sperryville, where they have activities, but they don't have it outside because they're in the middle of a neighborhood. They have theirs inside in the auditorium, which to me seems more appropriate. So I just felt like I needed to come tonight and express that. Not only for myself, but my neighbors across the street, down the road, and up the road from me. Thank you for taking that into consideration.
Thank you very much. Anyone else public comment online? Thank you. With that, is there any public comment here again? Okay, if you would, and we've been doing very well so far, so let's try to stay within 3 minutes or so. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marty McGettrick, and I live on Poorhouse Road in a house that is almost directly behind the Clevelandville School. And most recently, I spoke to the last meeting of you all, and so I apologize if I'm being repetitive, but by the way, I am supportive of Mrs. Shapiro's efforts to repurpose the school, 100%. with one caveat, as long as it doesn't interfere with the quiet living style of the neighbors that we've been used to all of these years. As you all know, Criggersville was once a very active mercantile location. It had 3 general stores and so forth, but through the years, it has evolved really into a very residential community. And this would disrupt that. I believe at the last meeting, I did mention something that was even more important than how it disrupts my day, so to speak. And that is the fact that we have a cemetery that is even closer to this venue than I am. And I think you all agree with me. My wife, by the way, is buried there. I think you all agree with me how important it is to have a quiet venue when you're visiting the cemetery, to be close to a loved one that you have lost. And it shouldn't be hours on that. Nighttime is unlikely, but these wedding events are going to be throughout the day. And I don't know how many graves are up there, but I suspect a couple of hundred. And if you go up there and see all the flowers that are at that cemetery, it is obvious that there are many, many visitors throughout the day at that venue. And to me, that's probably, for me, the most important factor that would disrupt the way I live my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment from the audience? Yes, ma'am, if you would.
Good evening. I'm Renee Balfour, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just want to say I support what Samantha Geary is saying, and I think that the legal language is something that needs to be considered and looked at here. And so I respectfully ask that you deny the application as is and ask to have it rewritten in accordance with things that comply to the issues that we're talking about this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment? All right, if not, any discussion from the Planning Commission? Well,
This case is obviously not perfect. The spot is not perfect for rezoning. I think it's very easy to picture the worst as well when we look at these things, and there's value in doing that because it can sort of reveal unforeseen issues that could come about. But I think in reality, the impact on the community as a whole in Criglersville and in Madison County is going to be relatively minimal, and there's going to still be lots of days just like they were today, because it's just not going to be that heavily used. That's my hope for everybody, for the entire community, and that is what I believe, and I think there will be some benefits, and there will be some changes, but I think as a whole, it's not going to be as bad as we could possibly picture. So I would move to recommend case number RZ-10-30-24-03 to the Board of Supervisors for approval.
All right, I think probably we better see if there's any further discussion yet.
Oh,
Any further discussion? Yeah, we got a motion on,
thought we all stared at each other
yeah,
already.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to add to that motion the condition number 5 of the?
We really can't,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess we either have to second it and move from there, or not second it and get further discussion, because,
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
yes, sir.
I'm just going to turn to Mr. Shapiro. You're offering that change to the proffer, right?
Of my own free will and under no compulsion.
Okay, so I think at this point, the planning commission is considering the amended proffer on this application.
Correct.
And there is a motion, so I think it's time to see if there's a second or not before going to discussion on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
even though we have a motion on the floor, would we be allowed to ask Mr. Wright a question before second?
Good. I'm all ears, Mr. Elliott.
I just want to ask you that if you feel comfortable with this rezoning legally wise.
Yes, I do. And I appreciate the public comments. We got some very smart people weighing in on this. I just have a difference of opinion on how that's read. So, but yes, I'm comfortable with it being legally sound.
That being said, I second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah, I will vote in favor of this. I think we really do need to separate the applicant from the application. And the application here.
Mr. Smith, pardon me, point of privilege here. Thank you.
All righty. I'll start again. I will vote in favor of this. I think we need to separate the application from the applicant here. I sense a lot of hostility. But in looking at the application, we are actually putting this property into a zoning where it should have been all along. It's strange to see that it was zoned A1. And to think that there's not going to be noise, I doubt seriously. I've talked to some of the students who attended years and years ago at Cricklersville. It was not a school for the mute. They did not attend schools in electric buses. So there was noise going in, there was noise there. I imagine they had PTA meetings and some children playing outside, so there was noise. And I'm really heartfelt sympathy for noise at the cemetery. But I lived in Arlington, and I will spend my forever years in the ground there. And it is a direct flyway with jets over it. And I can't imagine a wedding making as much noise as the jets over Arlington Cemetery, which is probably the most hallowed cemetery in this country. But I think that moving it to a B1 with the proffers, it makes an abundant amount of good sense for the county. It puts the property back on the tax rolls, whether it's Mr. Shapiro or the next owner. They will be paying taxes on it. And I think that the concerns we've had, if it turns into more of an event venue as opposed to a hotel, then you will have redress through the courts.
Any further discussion? All right, I do have one comment also. I think I'm probably going to vote for this because, among other things, if we look at Goal 2, Implementation Strategy number 7 in our comprehensive plan, this is specifically what's talked about in that implementation strategy in terms of a hotel. As far as the arterial road, it's hard for me to really worry about that since Crittlersville is easily in view of 231, which is a minor arterial road. So I think that's parsing a question too closely. And it definitely is a community. So an arterial road near a community would be ideal. As far as the determination of whether it's a nuisance factor or incidental to the congregation of people, I think, I believe along with Nathan, we just have to kind of hope that the applicant has the business sense to try to avoid antagonizing his neighbors as much as possible. So I think probably I would be voting in favor of this as well. Any further discussion? All right, we have then a motion on the table, and you had amended it to say with the change in the proffer. So we're saying we want to recommend for approval with the change in the proffer. Motion has been seconded. I think we probably should vote by a show of hands on this. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Okay, so we have a 6-1 vote in favor of recommending this rezoning with the amended proffer to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Thank you. Okay, our next case is case number 2024-SOA-12-18-01, an amendment to the BLA ordinance. The definition of a boundary line adjustment, or a BLA, is proposed to be modified in order to alter the plating requirements. This amendment is proposed to protect the public from undue costs associated with BLAs. Mr. Nichols, anything to add there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The language that's in the packet as presented tonight is the same as what we saw at the workshop. If recollection serves, there were no proposed changes at that time. Mr. Lewis is here tonight with us, should you have questions. He's a good resource, one of our local surveyors, and spoke at the last workshop. And so further discussion is back to you.
Okay. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Nichols? Does anyone have a question for anyone? All right. Is there any public comment on this case? No public comment. Do we have any public comment online? No? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion from the Planning Commission on this? I'll start off. I think this is probably appropriate. We've had members of the public who caught unintended consequence, I think, of an ordinance, and I think it's appropriate that we should address that. Any discussion? All right. Do we have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion that case number 2024 SOA-12-18-01 be recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded twice. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So the case number 2024-SOA-12-18-01 will be recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Okay, Mr. Nichols, we have one additional item here for us to consider, and I think maybe you should go ahead and address that.
The other item on here is simply a just some housekeeping. Your disclosure of real estate holdings is due to the Administrator's Office no later than the 3rd of February 2025 annual report. Please fill it out and turn it in. That is all.
Okay. And I appreciate we actually have a paper copy instead of having to download it on a PDF and fill it in that way. Any question for Mr. Nichols about this? Happens every year. Thank you. Yes. Okay.
Do I need to file 2 or 1?
Since you,
If you already filed one, is that what you're saying?
Hey, Ms. Turner, She does such a wonderful job. Kim is our clerk
I
of
was
many boards.
responding.
So, Mr. Smith, just so I understand correctly, because I know you serve on various boards, is your question is one sufficient for filing for all or any of those board requirements? Is that the question, sir? Is one sufficient, Ms. Turner?
I'm sorry, I missed the
The
beginning.
filing of the, forgive me, I think it's the Koya, the real estate holdings.
Mhm.
If we have any commissioner or any board member that sits on multiple that requires these things, is one being on file sufficient for all those?
So I'd have to read it to answer. So for one of the forms, yes. For the other one, not. I don't remember off the top of my head if it's the financial form or the real estate form. If that is answering your question. I think.
What we can do, apologies, Ms. Turner, what we can do, Mr. Chairman and the commission, is Ms. Turner can put out an email to all commissioners to not only clarify your question for you, but for all. So when you see your forms and if you serve on multiple boards, you would have an answer for that. So we'll bring that back as a follow-up, and thank you, Ms. Turner.
Okay, thank you. Any further question or discussion on that? All right, very good. All right, following that, we have a review of the upcoming workshop items for the Planning Commission. And
We have a number of things coming up, if you were ready for me.
yes, please.
Let's see, Mr. Hege should be ready for a workshop coming up here for his, the rezoning. It's from B1 to B1, but we're addressing the proffers that were put in place. So we should be ready to hear that case. Virginia Lawnscapes will be ready for their second workshop coming up, followed by the public hearing. Public hearing for that will be advertised on Thursday, so tomorrow. Same thing with Ms. Hoffner, Quietude Dog Boarding. We're going to have the second workshop for that one next week. Advertising for public hearing will go out tomorrow. Personal campground definition. Development on that will continue next week. Advertisement for public hearing will go out tomorrow. Since this packet has been published, I've spoken to Mr. Al Esch, who has submitted what seems to be the final site plan for Anabaptist Health Share. And we'll be seeing that site plan at this upcoming workshop as well. As long as all the requirements are met, I'll be reviewing that tomorrow. But we're going to try to get that in. That project has been waiting for some time. We have nominating committee and election of officers coming up at the next workshop as well. And those are all the items I'm tracking for the Planning Commission at this time.
Thank you, sir. All right, one last time, any public comment on, not on the cases, but in general, any public comment?
Miss Gary, did you have anything additional to add? I saw your hand was raised.
Yeah, unfortunately, my cattle dogs also have opinions. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to help clarify that my comments were not about this particular developer or even the B1 zoning in general, but to make it clear that this has been, the language of the zoning has been improperly interpreted, and that it's not ambiguous, and the current application is not written in a way that is legally defensible. I know that Hannah's probably in the room. I know you asked Alan about his opinion on it, but we have this isn't a gray zone, and it's also not. I'm not discussing whether or not it's having the B1 zoning happen or not happen. It's the way it's written is not defensible, and I am not opposed personally to the project as a general idea, but I think that the ordinance itself is very clear that this nuisance noise is not allowed, And it's not a proffer either, it's not something to be requested, it's just the application has to be legally correct and may not have that noise expressed in it in order for it to be a legal thing for you to vote on. And if you have any uncertainty, not quite sure whether I'm telling you the truth, which I assure you I am, you should postpone any further discussion until you have that clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have any further public comment on anything? All right. If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.
All right, everybody staying where they're at. I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors portion of this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening?
No, sir. I move that we adopt the agenda as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, start with public comment. Any general public comment? Any general public comment? Anybody? Nothing, Ms. Turner? All right, let's go right to the case. Case number RZ-10-30-24-03, Kriglersville Elementary School, LLC, conditional rezoning. Mr. Felix Shapiro is requesting to rezone parcel 21-61 from A1 to B1 with conditions. If approved, Mr. Shapiro intends to renovate the Kriglersville Elementary School building. Ellen, anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I believe we've covered the relevant topics.
Anybody have questions for Alan? Anybody? Any other questions for the folks sitting down here, I guess?
Well, I'll have one for Hannon in a few moments after I've addressed the applicant.
Absolutely. All right, to the applicant. Felix, anything to add?
Nothing I haven't said already. Thank you very much.
Probably should go up to the mic, and then it looks like we probably have some questions. We have some questions for Felix, I assume? Comments, something? There you go. All right.
Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Shapiro, I've looked over your application and taking into a lot of consideration, both from a local and a countywide standpoint, and referring back to our comprehensive plan, which is noted in here. You know, we have two goals. Two of the goals of the comprehensive plan are that, one, we want to retain rural character. The other one is that we want to promote tourism. And unfortunately, at some point in time, those two goals are going to conflict with one another. And I believe, this is just my opinion, that we're looking at a situation with your rezoning request where that's happening. And I base that on the fact that you're looking at having outdoor amplified music 7 days a week in a very close neighborhood with residences relatively close nearby. So I'm wondering if this is not a case of where tourism development isn't crossing the line over and starting to infringe on rural character of the county goal simply by having amplified music 7 nights a week. This is just my thoughts. If I owned the school when I was making this proposal, and I think it's a good proposal, I think there's a lot of potential there, I would limit the sound. I'd limit outdoor amplified live music to just the weekends, maybe Friday, Saturday night, and put a cap of 10 p.m. I can see where in warmer months this could drag on a nightly basis where there would be significant amplified outdoor music. And while intentions might be to not allow that happen, there's no restrictions on that would prevent that from happening. Those are my comments.
Sure thing. Well, I'll say a couple of things. And I'm sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the noise-related conditions as proffered would be amongst the strictest of any establishment in Madison County, and that is of all types. So, you know, I think it's worth noting that, yes, I know my friend Mr. McGettrick owns a B1 building about 10 yards from the school. He has made it clear that he keeps that building only for purposes of the recreation of his grandchildren, which I think is a laudable purpose. But were he to change his mind, or were he to sell it to someone else, he would be under no restriction. So I would say if noise restrictions are inherent to the nature of rural character, definitionally nowhere in Madison County has rural character, because Madison County does not have a noise ordinance. So I'm a little confused by that. As for the preservation of the unique character of the area, it is our intention to do a historic renovation, as we've made clear from the very start of this project, and as we have invested heavily to pursue. In order to do that, we will have to preserve the unique character of the school. And so I guess my question to you would be, as it was built in 1946, does the school in its current dimensions and form violate the rural character of the area? If so, I guess I can see where you're coming from. We are preserving the school, and if rural character means tearing it down, that's the farthest thing from our minds. But if preserving the rural character of the place means preserving the unique landmarks that give it its sort of physical culture and physical geography, then I think that we are being stalwart in our commitment to historic preservation, and indeed to the preservation of rural character. I appreciate that the hard work of government is often balancing apples and oranges, and you know, I do not envy your job on any day of the week, but I'm appreciative of you taking the time to do it, and taking the time to do it in a thoughtful manner.
Thank you. I also have a follow-up tangential question to our attorney.
By all means.
And it's related to this. Mr. Wright, and again, this is something I've been contemplating, and this is a very hypothetical question at this point. But let's say that in the future, hopefully in the distant future, that noise nuisance becomes a problem, whether it's from this location or any other location in the county that currently has outdoor amplified music. Would the county be able to pass a noise ordinance that only restricts outdoor amplified music and no other noise?
That is an excellent question. And, you know, there would be potential First Amendment implications, because you're talking about a type of noise or expression, possibly. The question also is, can you overlay a noise ordinance on top of whatever zoning is there? I think the answer to that is yes. Then would neighbors have the ability to try to claim a public nuisance if it's the use of this place is affecting their, I'll say, quiet enjoyment of their property? I think that's a possibility also. But if your question is, could the county put in a noise ordinance that would specifically target outdoor amplified music? I don't know the answer to that. I would have to look into it for you. I mean, I don't even want to shoot from the hip on that one.
Right. Well, the only reason I considered that is that at some point in time, what recourse would we have as a county, or what recourse would citizens in the county have if these types of establishments, quote unquote, got out of hand?
Right. I think it would probably have to be in a little bit more of a neutral way, where you're not talking about just outdoor amplified music, but, you know, it'd be measured by a decibel level, or there would have to be, I think, some objective criteria for the noise. You know, because it would be just as, I guess, obnoxious if it was, you know, somebody shrieking into a microphone, or giving speeches till 2 a.m. from their pulpit, you know. So I think there would have to be some objective criteria to it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, other questions, comments for Felix or our esteemed panel down here? Anybody else? All right, to the public. No, we're about to do public comment, so yes, you can, when we get to public comment, yes, sir. By all means, Mr. McGettrick. All right, public comment. We got to get you to use the mic, please, Mr. McGettrick. Thank you.
Just had a quick question, and it's best asked of Mr. Shapiro. And the question is, can we assume that if there is no event at the facility, that there will be no amplified music? In other words, if there's nobody being entertained, can he just flip the switch and blast out amplified music, whether the facility is being utilized or not? Doesn't seem right if that's the case.
This is to the Board of Supervisors, not question and answer to the applicant.
Okay.
All
right, well.
To answer your question, though, yes, he would be able to do that.
He would?
Yes. If he wanted.
So 7 days a week,
As long as it met
we could
within
have
those
amplified
parameters.
music
As long as he
all
met
day
within-
long?
As long as it met within the parameters and hours stated, if this passes this evening, you would be able to do that. Just like you would be able to go outside your house and play whatever music you would like, but that would be unrestricted. There's actually a neighbor feud in Madison where the neighbor is playing some type of heavy metal music all the time, and it sounds like a very bad relationship between the two. We've seen several videos.
Well, to me, if I may speak, that would severely impact the community. Not only the comfort level of those that live there, but property values as well. And I think that's something that should be kept in mind.
Thank you. That works. Other public comment. And we're also taking them online. Oh, Dennis, come on down. Thank you.
Dennis Coffey from Etlin. When you get ready to have another noise on its hearing. I got a couple things. Mr. Millay said that there were no local people for it. I'm not exactly local. I'm about 3 miles away on other end of Poorhouse Road, on Duet Road. And I did attend Criglersville from 1959 to 1966, so I probably know a little bit more about it than all of these other people that moved in here. I'm tired of it looking like it is. I'd like to see y'all do something about it. I live across from Blue Quartz Winery, so I hear amplified music. I hear it, but it doesn't ruin my quality of life. I sent you all an email a couple of years ago when Mr. Shapiro was first here talking about music. I'll remind you what I said, and rather than misspeak, I'm going to read it to you. Other than acreage in some instances, I see very little difference in what Mr. Shapiro proposes as compared to similar county venues. What he wants especially mirrors the operations of local wineries and breweries, with one key exception. He has to seek county approval for his project, while they don't under Virginia agritourism laws. As far as I know, they are allowed almost any activity without limitation. Mr. Shapiro, however, has agreed to a number of conditions in a futile attempt to appease his neighbors. For example, he has agreed to music limitations, but should a winery, brewery, or distillery choose to open in Criglersville, they could entertain hundreds of vehicles daily and play amplified music as late as they want 7 days a week without recourse. I urge you to grant him B1 status. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Oh, excuse me. Mr. Gary online has public comment. Mr. Gary, please.
Okay. Yes, thank you. This is Bill Gary. I have a question. Can I ask the question to Hannon or someone else, a legal question? Because I'd like to understand. Hannon made the point that he disagreed that there was a legal obligation not to allow intentional music in a industrial, I'm sorry, business zoned area. And when I read the clause, it's the first term is nuisance factor. So the district cannot be characterized by any nuisance factor. It's clear that nuisance factor means noise, because the only thing that is allowed by the statute relative to noise is incidental noise of congregation of people and passenger vehicles. So it's clear that noise is a nuisance factor, and the only thing that's allowed by a B1 is to have incidental, non-intentional passenger vehicles. So my question is, how do you think you'd ever be able to defend an action that you have taken the words and somehow are saying that the occasional incidental, the occasion, not occasional, occasion caused by congregation of people and passenger vehicles somehow creates no meaning whatsoever, and you can ignore nuisance factors of noise other than passenger vehicles? How would you ever defend that?
I do think this is public comment. I don't think this is negotiation of legal terms. You have more.
Because Hannon said to you guys that you could. One of the questions from him was, Hannon, can we do this? Is it illegal? And he gave a very, I thought, very inaccurate and way too simple response, telling you that you don't have legal liability and that you can do this. And I think you should ask the question. If I was in your position as a board member, I sure want to know, what is the legal basis that we would defend ourselves on? Because we've already lost some other actions here because things weren't done perhaps as well as they should have been.
Anything else, Mr. Gary?
Well, will someone on the board respond to my question then? Because I'm asking, don't you want to know on the board whether or not
public
this
comment,
is
not engagement back and forth? Anything else?
No.
All right. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Yes, yes, ma'am, Ms. Balfour, please.
So I would like to comment on the question of the legal issues at hand. Not only that, but also the comment about any future actions that might be able to be taken if the noise becomes a nuisance. These are two really important issues that I think need to be looked at a little more deeply. And if it means extending this vote, then I would suggest that maybe the committees look at this and really evaluate it, so there are not other lawsuits. There are some important issues here at hand, and right now they have not been adequately answered, especially the one on future. And admittedly, the county attorney says he can't really answer the question of future recourse. And I understand a comment was made that when this was the school, there weren't electric cars, there weren't, there were children, and so on and so on. Yes, that's true, but it wasn't until 11 o'clock at night, and it wasn't 7 days a week. So these are really different considerations, and I think they're important enough to take the time to do the proper research and get the adequate answers that need to be answered legally. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I think Mr. and Mrs. Quinn are next online.
Hi, Angela Quinn, speaking again on behalf of my husband and I, Creeklersville, adjacent property owners. And I don't know about the breweries and wineries, but the ones that I have had the privilege of visiting seem to have expansive land surrounding them, and they're not houses right on them. And I feel like this school has about five plus, maybe a little bit less than 6 acres on which to have an outdoor venue that abuts several houses right up against it. So that's why I'm not for it, for outside amplification of the music. I support him trying to do a hotel and having music inside. If he wants to have, that and be successful, I wish him well. But we do not support the outdoor amplified music. We do not have air conditioning. We keep our windows open most of the year, except for when it's cold like it is right now. And we enjoy that privilege, and we enjoy being outside and enjoying our property. And I think having amplified music way until the wee hours in the morning or late at night is not conducive to our neighborhood. And I hope you think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I don't think we have anybody else online. Anybody in the public? Anything? All right, back to the board. Public comments closed. Anybody have statements, comments? What would you like to do here?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got a few things. I think got my notes all over the place, so y'all bear with me here. So thanks to everybody who has weighed in, on this rezoning. Public comments and community engagement are a part of the process, as evidenced by the last time that this board rejected Mr. Shapiro's application to rezone. We turned that down. I've read and I've reread all the comments, and I have spoken with many, many people since June the 14th, 2022, when the offer was made on this. So my intuition is telling me that repurposing the Criglersville School by way of a conditional rezoning will be a public benefit for all of Madison County. Madison citizens are continually asking us for ways to diversify the tax base. The survey we sent out that came out last fall? Yeah, this past fall, for the comp plan speaks to that. And so at this point, the property is already going back on the tax rolls and will only increase as the improvements are made. I think that the conditional rezoning will allow for a very low impact commercial activity. It's going to generate sales tax. It's going to generate transit occupancy tax. It should also generate a modest number of employment opportunities. And the existence of business activity in the Criglersville area will likely spur others to establish businesses as the school location becomes a focal point for visitors. As Mr. McGettrick said, back in the day, and I remember it, although I guess Clay says I'm old. I remember when it was a vibrant community and the store was, you get your milk and your bread and all that stuff in there, and the school was there, of course. I mean, so as this becomes a focal point, hopefully, in my opinion, other businesses will start. We've already had what's the trail bites, okay? So we got that in there now. So I can't speak for Mr. Shapiro, but having a rejuvenated building would or could, depending on his preference, serve as a vibrant community hub, a resource. It could provide meeting space for the community, and perhaps a return of our beloved harvest dinner of days gone by. I certainly hope you would consider stuff like that. And last but not least, the school will no longer be a blight to the neighborhood. I mean, it looks terrible. And I have quoted our ex-presidents many times, but in this case, JFK said, "A rising tide lifts all boats." And I certainly think that this is one of those cases. Now, as many of you will recall, the option to demolish the Crigglesville School came up, I'd say 6 or 7 years ago. I think, Jonathan, you were still on the board then, right? I was on the planning commission. The place was packed with Crigglesville folks, and almost everybody in here, they had the contract in hand on this dais that night to sign to have it demolished. I spoke against having it demolished. The board acquiesced, decided not to demolish it because everybody got up there, don't demolish it, the bones are good, it's historic to us, sentimental to us, and something could be done with it. So they, once again, listened to the public and did not demolish it. Now, with regard to the zoning application itself, I think Mr. Shapiro has presented proffers that remove many things that could be done by right, probably half of them in there. He listened to the community and scaled back the operation that was before us when we turned down his rezoning request before by not having any structures out in the field back there. So I appreciate what he has given up in this application process. Now, in keeping with the comprehensive plan, on page 30 of the comprehensive plan, number 7, it says promote and to the extent lawful and feasible, incentivize the development of tourist/visitor-friendly businesses. So incentivize. This board, this county has never really used cash as an incentive. We have on a couple of occasions, I guess, over the past, but rezoning, in my opinion, is a good way to incentivize this. So, and then the other big thing that I've heard was, why not a special use permit? Well, let me tell you why. In an ag zone, one needs 3 acres per use, okay? So if we gave a special use permit to do the boutique hotel rooms upstairs, there's a use. So he wouldn't be able to do anything else with the bottom. He wouldn't be able to do anything else with the old ag building out front that was talked about perhaps being retail. So that's why you got to go business, and it's certainly appropriate. I mean, agriculture is school and agriculture. Okay, we run into this all the time, and that's one of the reasons we changed the rate for rezoning from $2,000 fee to $600, so that it would be closer in line with a special use permit, because too often people were going, well, we'll just get a special use permit, it's cheaper than going to rezoning. So we brought that down, and hopefully over time we will actually rezone appropriately. So given that the property has sat for 21 years now, I'm pleased that someone like Mr. Shapiro has come along and put forth a vision to repurpose the school, and so I want to see it succeed. That's all I know.
Very good. Please.
I'll try to make this quick. This has been a long year, my first year on the board. So it's a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. There's a lot of people that are involved in each of these decisions. There's a lot of work that goes in. This has been going on for 3 years. I think there's been concessions made. I'm on the Economic Development Committee for the county, and we're trying to bring in businesses that stick with the rural culture and aren't Ruckersville 20 condominiums being built on 6 acres. We're trying to make this so it's a place where people come visit, enjoy, understand our history that's here. Dennis was talking about this earlier, Mr. Coppage, when he said that he went to that school. And there's a lot of people on my road on Duet. I'm just a little bit further east than Dennis. And I do hear music from Blue Courts, and it doesn't bother me. My campers have a glamp site. They say sometimes they sit around a fire and enjoy it while they're sitting outside around the fire. It does end at between 10 and 11 at night. There's a neighbor that sometimes will call and say the music's too loud, and the owners, which I'm hoping Felix would do, would turn down the level if it's too loud. So that's kind of what neighbors do to neighbors. I mean, I'm hoping that's the case. If not, there's going to be a lot of issues. But I think that our county, and I've only owned property here for 20 years, but it's much like where I grew up, where businesses left, and it left an aging population, and it wasn't growing. And it's almost like we have a line to the history of our area, but that line is getting thinner and thinner as we age out, and we're not replacing the tax revenue, which we have a gold-class EMS, EMT, fire department, all these people that take care of us. We need the income coming into the county to take care of that. So part of our job on the Economic Development Committee is to bring in businesses that hopefully help that with that and become part of the community. So in my mind, this is a positive thing. I also don't think it's as bad as what people think it could be. And it's probably not going to be as good as people say it's going to be. Somewhere in the middle, I think it's a positive thing for our county. And so I'm in favor of it. So.
Other comments? All right. I'll go first. Hannon, do you have any response to what was stated earlier?
I would just say to the board that the question here is whether the rezoning is appropriate for this piece of land. And that's in consideration of the proffers that are given. It's not a question about whether or not you can do it. For you all, as this board, the question is whether you should. So I'm confident in that.
No, I've been thinking about this one a bunch, and I do like the public outreach on these things. I think basically I've come to the realization that all documents that government creates are meant to be used by citizens against us, the government. That's what it should be. It should be. You all should be able to come and say your opinions and go through it. We've been working on this for, I guess, 3 years. I think I was talking to Judd earlier. I really do. I think we've had almost a dozen public hearings on Kriglersville School over my time on the board. The community likes Kriglersville School. I understand change is challenging, no matter what. But this goes right with comp plan, on economic development. We have missed opportunities in the past, good businesses that have left Madison based on opposition. The car crash place that's down in Greene County, that was proposed to come to Madison. The public said they're going to crash cars on Route 29. That's not realistic. And it's a very good, quiet business. We're hoping this would be the same. I understand that the proximity of neighbors in Kriglersville, y'all see as your own type of community, and in some senses it is. But Madison is super small. I'm right in between the town of Madison and you all. I spend a lot of time in the Kriglersville area. Y'all are my neighbors, as you are with Cardi, Judd, Jim, all of us. It's not just y'all's community. It's our community. That's the great part about Madison. There are personal property rights. Like I responded to Mr. McGetrick back there in reference to the bad neighbors that are playing music just to irritate another person. Everybody's got rights. We're hoping Mr. Shapiro will go down the right path and be a good neighbor. I like that he's cleaning up trees. That was a comment that was made to me earlier. And some concession on time of amplified music is that way. Breweries don't have to jump through any of these hoops at all. I'm looking at it in a less positive way based on some of the comments that we've gotten. And I've asked the question, and nobody's been able to answer it for me. I've heard all the doom and gloom about every proposal that comes across this dais up here. And for years, before I was on the board, lots of them. What is one that was negative, that came out to the doom and gloom that was conveyed and how it was going to change the community in such a negative way? I can't think of any. And I've asked, hell, he's been here forever. I mean, Jonathan down there, it's the same thing. Nobody can answer that. What is one that has really been a detriment to our community? I see some of the opportunities that we've missed as detriment, but we've grown and it'll be fine. We're hoping this one is the same way. Also, just since it's been brought up, I will never, ever do another noise ordinance. I will vote against it immediately. No comment, immediately against. We talk about amplified music. That's one that would be covered. Dogs barking. I don't care what neighborhood you're in. Dogs are very coveted by Madison County, and we are not going to restrict dog barking. I certainly am not. I do think that if the rules come into effect later, like Mr. Wright has stated, they certainly could be applied here. But hopefully we don't have to go down that path. Anybody else have any comments? What would you all like to do here?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number RZ-10-30-24-03 with as proposed by the Planning Commission with the amended proffer number 5, which, would you read that, the amendment?
The amended proffer number 5 would be, all outdoor amplified music shall cease 1 hour after sunset on Sunday through Wednesday and at 11 p.m. on Thursday through Saturday. Did I read that correctly?
Very well.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Anybody? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Get that? We have 3, 4, and then 2 against.
Voting against it was Mr. Jewett, Mr. Dawson. Voting for was Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Yao.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you all. Case number 2024-SOA-12-18-01, amendment to BLA ordinance. The definition of a boundary line adjustment, BLA, is proposed to be modified in order to alter the platting requirements. This amendment is proposed to protect the public from undue cost associated with BLAs. Alan, anything to add?
No, Mr. Chairman. After productive discussion at the last workshop, I think that it was in general agreement that this was a positive step for the public.
Any questions on this to Alan or Hannon or Jonathan, anybody down there? Very much, yes, sir. All right, to the public. Mr. Lewis, thank you so much for your contribution, and pass that along to Mr. Burke as well. Anytime we can make the process a little bit easier for people is a good thing.
Will do. We appreciate y'all listening and making the change we believe is in the best interest of the county.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any public comment? All right, back to the board. What would you all like to do here?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number 2024-SOA-12-18-01, amendment to the BLA ordinance.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, no new business, no information and correspondence. Back to public comment. Any public comment? Any public comment? Anybody? All right, back to the board, no closed session. What would y'all like to do?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you all. Thank you. Sorry.